Another week. Okay, get that up, get that up. Make sure my microphone is picking up. It is, very good. Is it the right microphone? It is, fantastic. 1080p, very good. Yeah, that's right. We are trying the higher resolution. I am not announcing this stream. No, that's not gonna happen this week. Ah, the arm. Yeah, we can talk about the arm. When that happens, yeah. Hey there, hi there. Oh, fantastic timing. Dropping some frames already. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you should have gotten a notification so long as you opted into them. Welcome to the stream. Hey there, hi there, Hyde here. For as long as my internet connection will let me be here, of course. We have our gotcha spin, right? It's been a full week since last I've played this game. So I have no idea what I'm doing. We got some hooks. Shiny red hooks are good. We're just gonna go right to fishing, you know? I can't remember what we got into last week. I think we got a boat. And we had a fish finder, right? Oh look. Look, there are asps and catfish. That'd be fun. Maybe we should buy a license to a new place to stream. Catch some catfish. But the catfish are pretty big, right? Yeah. But yeah, it's... Oh. Look at that, my fishnet's full. Did I just end stream last time without selling all of my fish? Like, I'm pretty sure the last couple weeks I have sold all of my fish just to make sure that didn't happen. And the only week that I didn't check to make sure I did that, I end up not doing it. We'll save for, Kathleen Lake. We don't want to go to Ottawa. I've never been to Ottawa. But I don't like the sound of Ottawa, right? Ooh, the movement in this game. So fresh, so crisp. Oh, it's so janky. I forgot how bad it was, right? I've been playing a lot of Dying Light as of late. Ottawa. It has that guttural flap. You know the one I'm talking about? Like when you say water, there's that flap made by the two T sounds next to each other. It's not water, it is water. Water. That little guttural flap. Or, I think it's a glottal flap, is what it's called. It's been a long time since I studied phonemes and phonetics. So, yeah. Yeah, it's good to be back. I have, not been doing much of anything this week. Right? Just relaxing, for the most part. It was Halloween a couple of days ago. I didn't do anything for Halloween. Yeah. I know a lot of people, when they get to be adults, like, they put out candy for children. But no children ever come out this far anyway. And if they did, I'm sure they wouldn't want candy from me, right? That doesn't happen. No. So there were no children trick-or-treating at my house. Doesn't happen. Never has. Never will. One year, I wanted to make colored flame, right? Like, I looked up the science of making a sort of colored candle. And I don't mean like the candle would be colored, I mean like the flame itself would be colored. And, I stumbled upon a certain method of using rubbing alcohol and, dissolving a salt, a metal salt in that. And I made... like, I made my own copper acetate, right? A very impure copper acetate. And I just never actually did that. I never put it in the rubbing alcohol and burned it like a candle. But you can apparently do that. Yeah, and you'll get a nice green flame. Wish you could give out candy? Yeah. Well, I've seen trick-or-treating at apartment complexes before. But you're right. Like, Unless, like, an apartment's known for it, I guess it would be very hard to know if any people in the apartment would actually be giving out candy. But I've seen, like, certain years when it was impossible to go out for whatever reason. Adults got together in my small town, wherever that was when I was a child, and they would get, like, instead of apartments, they would get us all to come to the schools, right? Where there are all those classrooms, and then we'd go from classroom to classroom, trick-or-treating. And that was kind of like giving us the experience, right? Yeah, yeah. Never came to any of the apartments that you've lived in. That's a shame. That's a shame. Um, Maybe if you organize something... Well, you're probably busy, aren't we all? That's why a lot of things don't get done in life, right? We're all busy doing things. And even if there's a good idea, or there's a community outreach idea, like, it just doesn't happen because we're all busy people. We all have our own lives. Yeah. But, I've seen it before with apartment complexes where they organize in advance and, like, they put flyers up around town and they say, come to this floor of the apartment. Everyone's giving out candy on this floor. And, you can get a lot of candy that way. I've never, gone to one of those before. There weren't too many very tall buildings where I grew up, but I have heard of that. I've seen that happen. I have family that have been part of such things, and I imagine it really does depend on the community, right? There has to be some kind of idea of community, or else really who would know to go to an apartment building? And you'd really have to have everyone in the apartment building giving you the blessing, right? Otherwise, like, your neighbors would be complaining about all the constant foot traffic, especially if you have paper-thin walls. Hyde does not live in an underground compound. I wish I did. If I lived in an underground compound, that would make life so much easier. Rural mole man? I wish. I wish it were that simple. I've always wanted, like, my own personal Fallout bunker that I could just put in the ground. I've also wanted secret rooms in my house, right? Like, whenever I have dreams about the zombie apocalypse, which is quite often, mind you, I always dream about hidden rooms, like safe rooms in the middle of my house. Like, one would be in a fireplace that you have to check behind the fireplace, and then there would be, like, crawl spaces behind walls you could walk through. I always wanted something like that. Not because I think that I'd need a safe room from, like, house robberies or something, but purely for the zombie apocalypse, which is inevitable. If you haven't started preparing for the zombie apocalypse, well, now's your time. There's no better time to start than now, in fact. Right? People always wait till the last minute to get their supplies for natural disasters. And those are just things like storms, right? Have you ever had to go shopping right before, like, a big storm rolls through? Like a hurricane? Or a tornado or something? Yeah. Imagine that, but much larger. Like, the entire collapse of society large. Because that's what's gonna happen when the zombies come, you know? When I was a kid... when I say kid, I mean 16, maybe 18 at the most. That's still kid-like, right? That's still kid-like. When I was 16 or 18, I remember the Miami face-eating cannibal, the bath salts cannibal. And, that was big news for a long time. There were a lot of different zombie stories at that time, right? Please, attention. And, I was nearly convinced that the zombie apocalypse was starting that year. Yeah. I remember there was one video on YouTube especially that got really big. It wasn't the bath salt zombie, although that one was on there too. It was about a lady who looked like a zombie, and she was, like, growling at people. It was very scary stuff, especially to a young and impressionable Hyde. For snowstorms. Yeah, yeah. It's good to be stocked up beforehand, but, snowstorms, definitely. You get stuck in the snow, plows don't always go, roads are ruined. And even if roads are cleared by whatever Department of Transportation or private contractor you may use, like there's always the risk that the snow will melt and leave ice behind, right? Look at that trout. That's a nice trout. That's a wonderful trout. I'm having a fun time here. And you could get snowed in pretty easily, right? Yeah. So you definitely have to make sure you're stocked up with that before snowstorms. But everybody's always rushing, right? If you ever have to go out right before a snowstorm, everybody's there, buying the strangest of things. I know a lot of people complained about people hoarding toilet paper and other things during COVID. But that's really what it is, right? Like, people just buy the strangest things before a snowstorm. I remember there was an episode of King of the Hill, which is an adult animated series if you don't know, much like The Simpsons or Family Guy. Very adult humor, but a very serious take. And there was one episode where I think there was a tornado coming, and Hank needed an air filter for his car, his truck. And no one knew what the air filters were for, but they all wanted them, right? Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Like, it doesn't matter what's on the shelf. People are just grabbing things. And that's exactly what it's going to be like when the zombies come. I reckon we have probably 5-6 years. So you better start stocking up now. When the zombies come, you gotta think about what kind of currency you're going to be using, too. I don't think money's going to have much value. Filter out the tornado, duh. Well, you know, it's interesting, like, a lot of airflow systems tend to use, well, I shouldn't really talk about airflow systems. I don't really know too much about them. But I do know a lot of them do use, like, vortices of air. I think that's like a vacuum, where you can create a vacuum much easier like that. Right? When you think of vacuums, do you think about vortices? I do. Yeah. I think about the swirling of air, and I think in my vacuum there's like this little tornado. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's how vacuums work, that they create little tornadoes. But that's how it works in cartoons, right? And if cartoons do that, I can't imagine it being, you know, a lie. People don't just animate lies, do they? Like, if you think about it, children are the main audience for cartoons. They are the target demographic, if you will. Therefore, they wouldn't lie to children by telling them incorrect things about science, right? Especially not science. Like, if you have an umbrella and you jump off the roof, you can glide down safely. That's what Tom and Jerry taught me, at least. And I have no reason to suspect that they're lying about that. Yeah. What was I talking about? I feel like I'm very distractible today. Religious cartoons? I don't think I was talking about religious cartoons, although King of the Hill does have religious elements. It's very Americana, you know? How far do I want to get in the weeds with the religious cartoons aspect? Probably not very, right? Like, I don't mind talking about such things, but this is about escapism, right? We don't need to talk about religion unless it is on the screen, right? Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of, I have not done anything with id in a while. I do want to make a sort of condensed video of the last id stream, hunting Draculas, if you haven't seen it. I think that would be fun. I haven't really been, I don't know, productive as of late. My arm is finally starting to not hurt every day. So maybe I'll get back into productivity, right? When I can move my arm without it hurting. Yeah. I can get some sleep without being woken up every couple hours because it hurts. Yeah. Enough of the downer topics. You were wondering about that? I am healing, thankfully. It got to the point where I was wondering if it weren't like a rotator cuff issue, right? Because rotator cuff issues are a lot worse than tendonitis. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad I'm feeling better too. But yeah, rotator cuff injuries are like, you need surgery. or else you're not fixing that, right? But tendonitis, it's just a matter of, I don't know, 5 weeks or so of not feeling great. So, the fact that it is healing is good news to me, right? I couldn't be happier about it. I know it doesn't sound like I couldn't be happier, but I am. I'm fantastically happy. I have been resting it though, which is nice. Like, I have that luxury. I know a lot of people, they're very active people, and their jobs don't allow them to rest injuries like tendonitis. I have a feeling that that ruins the productivity of the worker of the modern era. Yeah. I don't feel down. I think I'm just tired today. I'll be honest, like, this... Today is the first day after daylight savings time, right? And DST always throws me off my game just a little bit. Hey, I know a lot of people who it throws off a lot more than I do. I looked at the clock last night because I was up, and instead of seeing 3 a.m., I saw, you know, 2 a.m. I was like, that's not right. That's not right. I should definitely be closer to my sleeping time. But I stayed up an extra hour, luckily for me. Unlike most people, I'm awake during the time that the DST shift is. So, that's why my streams are an hour later. I am pretty well adjusted, despite being a little bit sleepier, because I stayed up a bit later. And, well, you know, it wouldn't have made much difference, because, after all, I'm not getting as much sleep as I really want. Yeah, enough of the downer topics. Yes. I'm feeling fine, just a bit tired. So maybe I should change to my tired model, yeah? It's possible I could. This is a big fish, though. I don't want to lose it. That's exactly how I feel in real life when I'm catching a big fish, right? Like, I have to really concentrate on the big fish. It's very rare, though, to catch anything that sizable. Fishing in my area is sort of a national pastime, right? I say national. It's a regional pastime, how about that? Although I think fishing is a national pastime in the truest sense. Like, if you look at angling shows on the television, which I assume exist, I haven't seen any since River Monsters, which was a fantastic show, mind you. I think a lot of the world doesn't have the recreational fishing kind of culture. I think that's a very American thing. I know there are other parts of the world that have it. Like, I've seen Japan has a fishing culture, like a recreational one. But, fresh water especially seems to be pretty strange. Most people, when they go out to catch a fish, they're going for a meal, right? Americans just have the luxury of throwing them right back in the water. It's sport. It always is. Like, it's you against the fish. And that's how Jeremy Wade presented things in River Monsters. And I wouldn't have realized how weird it is that we have a recreational fishing culture, except for Jeremy Wade's River Monsters. Like, in 90% of the episodes, he goes to some random place in the middle of nowhere where all the big fish live because no one's catching them, and he catches a river monster. And then everyone wants to eat it, right? Like, that's just what they do. When someone catches a big fish, they eat it. Seems, it seems intuitive to do it that way, doesn't it? Like, it's life or death for people to have fish on their table. But me? No. I just catch them for fun on my day off, or, you know, in my time off. It's a very strange way of living, I think. Very disconnected from, well, I don't want to call it the power process, because that would put me on a lot of watch lists. But I do think it is a very disconnected way of living, right? We're disconnected from what it means to be hunter-gatherers. And here we are, just enjoying it recreationally. It's very strange. It'd be like taking up dentistry recreationally, right? Like, I've always considered that. What if I just took up dentistry recreationally? I'd probably do a better job than my own dentist, you know? Like, I could definitely remove a tooth. That wouldn't be too hard. I think removing teeth is probably easier than putting them back in, after all. Here we go, we finally tired this fish out. Here's a little tip for you fisher angler people in real life. You never really want to tire a fish out if you plan on putting it back. This isn't even that big. There's no way that's 20 kilograms. That does not look 20 kilograms. What are you talking about? That fish was like 5 kilograms at most. I think the models are bad. What was I talking about? Right, don't tire fish out when you're fighting them in real life. You know? You have to make sure that they go back with enough energy. That they don't just drown. That's a neat thing. Fish can drown, did you know that? Like, fish drown all the time. It's strange, if you think about it. They don't breathe water. Fish breathe air. Just like us, they breathe oxygen, which is dissolved in the water. And their feather-like gills take that oxygen out of the water. And they breathe that. But if they can't move very much because they're all tired out from you, you know, reeling against them like this, then they will drown if you put them back. There's a culture of holding the fish and then rubbing it in the water, like wiggling it around. I know it looks silly, but it actually helps them to get air over their gills, which kind of revives them a little bit. Yeah, so you have to do that. Otherwise, they might drown. But you know what? Some fish out there, they have specialized swim bladders, right? And they've developed these specialized swim bladders so that they can survive on land for extended periods of time. They essentially use them like lungs, but they're not lungs, they're a swim bladder. And if you don't know what a swim bladder is, it's basically just this organ, thus bladder, that they can selectively fill with gas or fluid, depending. Well, I guess gas is a fluid, isn't it? Right? Like gases are fluids. That's strange to think about, too. When most people say fluids, they usually mean liquids, but yeah, gas is a fluid. So yeah, they can fill those up with different fluids, and that'll affect their buoyancy, so they don't really have to stay struggling so hard with their muscles to swim. They can just essentially float. It'd be neat if I had a swim bladder, right? Like, I struggle with swimming all the time. I sink like a stone. It's a constant battle to make sure that I keep my head above water. Some people are just built like that, right? They're built with lead skeletons. Or in the case of wolverines, they have adamantium skeletons. I always thought that maybe I had lead in my skeleton, because I swallowed buckshot as a kid. But I don't think I do. If I have lead anywhere, it's probably in my nervous system, as evidenced by me swallowing buckshot as a kid, right? Yeah. Where would I put the swim bladder? That's a good point. There isn't actually that much space in the human thoracic cavity. The abdomen has some, especially since we don't have, like, the full ribs. Probably where my kidney is, right? I think that'd be a great place for a swim bladder. Obviously, I'd have to put one on each side. But, again, I knew a person whose father had, like, 7 kidneys, and he was fine. So I imagine there's enough space there. It would probably add, like, a protrusion or two from my back. And come to think of it, that might not be the best place to put it, right? Like, I'd have to keep my head above water. So, in that case, maybe it would be best to put a swim bladder in my neck, right? There was a Pokemon with a inner tube around its neck, right? Was it Weasel, I think? Where did I put my kidney? I just turned it into a swim bladder, right? If you think about it, a kidney is a swim bladder. You can fill it with fluids, and it will affect your buoyancy. It's just very poor swim bladder. You know what else is a swim bladder? Your actual bladder. Blitzel. Yeah, Blitzel, okay. That doesn't sound real. It sounds like a German food, you know? Blitzel. I'll take the Blitzel and a side of, I don't know. Some kind of apple flan? I don't know. Like, Blitzel doesn't sound real. Maybe I'm just like a Gen 1 purist, but I also thought that Gen 2 was okay. Yeah. Gold and silver. Yeah, I don't think, I don't think I'd actually like Blitzel. Like, I've never really cared too much for water types. The only water types I enjoyed were like Squirtle and Mudkip. Weasel. Weasel. Yeah, I thought it was Weasel. Yeah, yeah. See, I was right, it was Weasel. Wealzabub, you know, Lord of the Flies. I have no idea what's going on tonight. I decided that I would just let myself be unhinged today. Like, to be honest with you, I was tempted, really tempted, to just turn on Dying Light and just loot buildings all night. That's what I've been doing in my free time as of late. It's my first time playing Dying Light, and I've seen it played before, so I know the story roughly, and I'm just ignoring it completely to loot buildings. I usually don't. No, no. Usually when I go unhinged, you get things like Rupert Grint's How the Grinch Stole Grinchmas Part 2. This is me very much hinged. Like, even right now, I'm still kind of hinged. We'll get there, though, I think. Fun story. I saw while I was looking at the sales on, the Nintendo eShop, that is a big fish. That's only 4 kilograms. Yeah, this one's big. It definitely took a while to catch this one. I don't know if they intended for them to get so big, you know? Kind of a waste for 600, but that's okay. Anyway, I saw that a game about the Grinch was on sale on the Switch. How the Grinch Stole Switchmas, I guess. And I was considering buying it, just for the joke of Rupert Grint's How the Grinch Stole Grinchmas Part 1. I would have put Rupert Grint's face over the Grinch in every part of the movie, or yeah, every part of the video, for whatever I played it for. That was the plan. But I couldn't justify it to myself, right? I think that would just be too much effort to me. And, yeah. As funny as I would find that joke, I don't think anyone else would. I don't know. Besides, I have other things to do, like, loot things and Dying Light. I have gotten myself to, level 10 in all of my stats. Or at least level 10. I know I got the grappling hook, and I'm only, like, 8% through the story. I haven't even gotten to Rice yet. So, I have all of this late-game stuff available to me in pretty much the beginning mission of the game, and I haven't even started it yet. And I probably never will, right? I play games strangely when they're open world. There are people like that, right? People will either rush into things, get the story done as quickly as possible, or they will do what I do, and they will grind endlessly until they're, like, super powered, and nothing can stop them. That's about where I'm at right now in Dying Light, my first playthrough. I was very tempted to turn it on to my lowest difficulty setting and just loot the world. I'm glad I chose normal. There are just enough virals to make it interesting. You ignore the Elder Scrolls mainline quests? Yeah. I remember doing that back in, Oblivion. I didn't play Skyrim. I know it's strange that I never played Skyrim, but that's one of those games that just came out at the wrong time. For me. And, I just never ended up playing it. In any of the releases, right? Like, Todd Howard never got me. I feel bad for everyone that Todd Howard has gotten with Skyrim. Like, they've paid more than enough. And you know what's really annoying to me? Like, Skyrim is still full price on the Nintendo Switch. Like, not even the best version of Skyrim is full price. Just the Nintendo Switch version. Kind of ridiculous. But yeah, the Elder Scrolls games are pretty great. I know. But he didn't get Skyrim money from me, you know? Like Oblivion, I don't even remember when Oblivion was made. When I was a kid. So, it was a lot less expensive back then. It wasn't $60 on a Switch, I can tell you that much. I don't think I'm ever gonna play Skyrim. But, yeah, every NPC pretty much has a side quest for you in the Elder Scrolls games, and it's pretty great, right? And you can endlessly loot wherever you go. That's one of the things I did like about Fallout 3, and, I preferred New Vegas, if I'm being honest, yeah. Like, New Vegas is just an overall better game, a better gaming experience. I think, however, Fallout 3 did have better DLC, yeah. Which isn't saying much, right? Yeah. I just didn't really like Dead Money. I think Dead Money was a terrible, DLC for New Vegas. These things will happen though, right? Like, they can't all be winners. Sometimes DLC sucks. Speaking of DLC, and, again, back to Dying Light. The Dying Light that I got was the definitive edition for the Switch. It only cost me $8.50. Do I like Pikmin? I do. I at least like the first Pikmin. The last one I played. It was a very interesting concept when it came out, you know? And I was very fascinated by the different abilities the different Pikmin had. Like, it was very cute, seeing how some of them were buds and how some of them were flowers. And, yeah, it really didn't affect much, did it, right? Like, mostly it was, whether they had long ears or a big nose. Yeah, that's what gave them their powers. I don't know. I haven't played any of the recent Pikmins, though. I don't even know what number they're out up to now, like 4? I thought that was always going to be a one-off game, right? Yeah. You love Pikmin? All good games, some better than others. Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know anything about the walking app, but I do know that Pikmin was a fun concept. And I don't think there's ever really been a throw living creatures at, materials and living creatures simulator that is better, right? Like, Pokemon can't even do it that well. If you ever want to control a mob or an army, then yeah, Pikmin's a great time. I remember, it was very stressful when I first picked up Stressman. Sorry, when I first picked up, Pikmin, Freudian slip. It was very stressful for me, because it had the time limit, right? Yeah, it had the time limit. Otherwise you would die on the planet if you didn't get your ship parts in time, right? Yeah. I never really liked games like that. Like, it's always stressful for me when there's a time limit. So, yeah. Each game has a pretty detailed bestiary. Oh yeah. That is up my alley. I was considering a game like that not too long ago. I don't know. Would I ever do Pikmin? It's tough to say, right? It really is tough for me to say what kind of games I can do on stream. Like, I realize that, maybe this fishing simulator isn't the most engaging thing to watch, but it's really just background for me talking, right? And, some games require me to think a lot more than other games. Potato PC, that is correct. That's not the only thing. Like, if you noticed, I have the stream set to stream at 1080, and it seems to be pretty stable. We're only losing frames with the internet hiccups, so I'm happy about that. Disco Elysium, yeah. Yeah, Disco Elysium is great. I actually have the Switch version of Disco Elysium. I like Disco Elysium quite a bit, and maybe we'll get back to that at some point. But I remember the last time I played it, I just talked to Eraserhead for the entire game. For the entire stream. and nothing happened, right? Like, it took up too many of my mental faculties to both have conversations and play a game. This might be the most gaming I can do while talking at one time, you know? Like, I recognize, as a streamer, that's kind of the only thing you have to be able to do. Play a game and provide engaging dialogue. And I struggle to do both. Let alone to do, both at the same time. I struggle to do either. Yeah. So I really have to try my best when I pick games to play. That's why I pick a lot of story-driven games like Disco Elysium. Especially on lazy days, when I don't feel like I can be very engaging. Like, I'm in the weeds here. I'm talking about the sauce. I'm giving away my secrets. But on lazy days, when I don't feel like I can be engaging, I'll pick a story-driven game with a lot of spoken dialogue, so that I can read a lot, right? Yeah. So if you ever see me doing something like a side pocket or a fishing stream, things like that, like the Minesweeper streams, that actually means that I gave the stream some thought, planned out some topics ahead of time, and actually put some effort into things. Secret sauce, that's right. Secret sauce is actually very not secret. It's made of the most common ingredients that you could think of. Ketchup, mustard, relish, mayonnaise, you know? Maybe a little bit of hot sauce or barbecue sauce, depending. The secret to, I think the Big Mac sauce is the onion, right? They have really finely chopped onions. Yeah, I think that's the secret. Or maybe it's, Dijon mustard, specifically. Or maybe it's, paprika. I think it's all of those things. Although I can't really trust my, sense of taste. I actually have a very terrible sense of taste, yeah. The only things I can taste are things that taste, very strongly, right? Sometimes different variations. There are many possibilities for a secret sauce. I guess it would depend on, like, where your secret sauce is coming from. Who manufactured your secret sauce. You could have your own secret sauce, right? I'll keep it a secret. You can share it with me. Look at that bass. Big bass. Like coffee wine. Coffee wine is my secret sauce. Speaking of, I had my first nightcap in over a month. Not too long ago. Yeah, I gave myself a couple days off the ibuprofen, and, it tasted awful. Like, it was immediate poison. The reaction was... Oh wow, that was a loud bird chirp. Did you hear that? Just right in the left ear. Or right ear. Yeah. I think it drove me a little bit batty. My coffee wine... Yeah, that one, right there, that bird. My coffee wine is absolutely horrid. It is completely dry, and, it's very yeasty still. Like, I didn't even care about it. Yeah, my current batch is fantastic. It's going to be perfect. It's the greatest way to come back to drinking. I really should move. Yeah, dry. You know how wines can be sweet or dry? Typically, American wines are very sweet, but they're called sweet. Because Americans don't like dry wines for whatever reason. The driest wines that Americans like tend to be things like champagnes and sparkling wines. Yeah. We're gonna move so I don't hear that bird in my ear. Please let me move. No, please, please. Where is that bird coming from? Can I catch the bird? Can I catch the bird and throw it in as bait? Maybe I'll catch a muskie or pike. They'll eat birds. I've seen it happen before. But yeah, I prefer my wines dry. It has nothing to do with the amount of calories in your wine. It's just a preference, really, right? Like, I started making my wines very dry so that I could store them more easily. I always worried about my wines having, like, bottle fermentation, so I made sure they were extra dry before I bottled them. That's how I liked it. So I wouldn't have to worry about them creating a bomb in my, storage. Not a big drinker? Yeah. Well, hmm. Needing it for cooking is one thing, yes. And I know you're supposed to use wine that you like to drink when you're cooking. That's what everybody says to do. But I don't see it. Like, I know a lot of cooking that uses really poor wines that ends up fantastic. So I don't know if I'd ever drink a wine I would use for cooking. Or at least the recipes I know. Bottle for the fifth? Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I don't even know if I'm going out to vote, you know? Like, it doesn't matter at this point. Someone else will just vote for me, right? That happened before. So, I don't mind if they do that again. It doesn't matter to me. uh, who cares about voter fraud anyway? It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I'm with you with the wine. Look, uh, if I vote, what's gonna happen? It's gonna be harder for someone else to vote using my name. That's it. That's the only thing that's gonna change. It doesn't matter, the outcome is the outcome. I don't even need my tinfoil hat for this one. Yes, I was kind of a victim of voter fraud. I never reported it because I didn't know it happened until years after the fact, so it wouldn't have changed anything. It's not a conspiracy when it happens, Diana. Um, someone voted under my name. It happens. Voter fraud is a real thing. And I wouldn't have known, because no one would know. You'd have to look into the public records, which they only keep for 2 years, right? So those public records are gone after 2 years, which is incidentally when I figured out that someone had done it. So it's not even like I could report the crime. You know what I mean? I'm convinced. It just doesn't matter. It's all illusion, right? Like, if I were someone in charge of anything, I wouldn't be a public face. I wouldn't be a politician, right? Because politicians draw the ire of all of the dissatisfied citizens in the nation, right? No. If I had power, I'd be pulling strings from the shadows like some kind of puppeteer. And I guarantee that's what the people in power are actually doing, you know? They're using these people as scapegoats, as figures. They're actors in a movie. Yeah. You'd think that, yes, but they'd definitely count it twice. Yeah. Like, I used to think like that. But then you realize you're on multiple voting lists, even though you shouldn't be, in multiple states, and no matter how much you report that, it doesn't matter because you're not taken off of those other states' voting lists. Very strange things happen, Diana. Yeah. I should probably stop talking, right? This is why I don't talk about politics. Yeah. Yeah, I like living, right? Under no circumstances would I not like to be living. Okay? If anything happens, yeah, I like living. Yes. uh, I miss Trevor Moore. Yeah. Hmm. What was I gonna talk about? Right, so I found a zombie audiobook today, right? I gave it a listen. It was just one of the random recommended zombie audiobooks that were available. I didn't even remember the title. Like, I just pick them, I turn them on while I'm working, and, it was interesting, right? Like, the main character is supposed to be this cold, callous sociopath, which I thought would be an interesting take, the apocalypse novel, right? This, instead of showing the best of humanity, the main character is like the worst of humanity. This is a character who has apparently murdered people, right? He's a character who murdered someone as a kid. And then he murdered someone else as, like, an adolescent. And, he's supposed to be cold and callous and sociopathic. But the author, he seems very wishy-washy about it. Yeah? Like, he gives these hints that this guy might actually care about his family, or he might care about random strangers. And I don't really know what's going on. I liked the idea that he was a sociopath, right? Because that's interesting. A lot of zombie novels are about this main character who was, I don't know, a power fantasy insert, and it's supposed to be about how if I were given the right opportunities, I could be a better person. And that's what a lot of those zombie novels are. But in this instance, great, fantastic. Are we back? We're back, yeah. Or if he's actually just a horrible person who has these moments of lucidity. I'm not sure. I always prematurely judge media like that, right? Like, I need to constantly remind myself that I shouldn't make judgments too quickly. I'll never know what's happening if I don't get to the end. But in this case, I don't want to get to the end, right? It is just so infuriating to go back and forth between, well, maybe he's actually a good person who's just acting tough, right? He's had a rough childhood. He's acting tough. He murdered 2 people. Before the zombie apocalypse, right? He just murdered 2 people. I don't think you can act tough after that. Either you're a sociopath, or you're not. Don't give me this wishy-washy both of them at the same time. So I stopped listening to that, and just turned on Flogging Molly, which was great. I haven't heard Flogging Molly since, oh, I don't know, probably 2018. I remember I used to buy every single Flogging Molly album that came out. I was enamored with Flogging Molly as a kid. There was nothing else like it, right? In the early 2000s, there weren't really that many Celtic rock bands, especially... you had the Dropkick Murphys, maybe, that would count. And you had the Pogues, I guess, in the 90s. But Flogging Molly had its unique style, and it was always more upbeat than Dropkick Murphys, which were violent, or the Pogues, which were, I don't know, some kind of 15. Again, this fish looks entirely too small to be 15 kilograms. The Pogues, which are just punk. Yeah. Anyway, I like zombie stuff, if it's not obvious. Yeah. So much so that I am tempted every time that a zombie shovelware game pops up for sale. I think about buying it, no matter how bad it looks. Like, you'd be surprised how many zombie games there are in the Switch. Not all of them are great, mind you, but there are a lot of good ones. Things like Resident Evil game, playing one of those. I've never actually played a lot of the Resident Evil series. Like, when I was young, I was a Nintendo kid, so we didn't really have... Well, we did. We did have PlayStations, I just didn't play PlayStation. I thought Nintendo was cooler, right? Like some kind of tribalism. Yeah, that's how it felt to me at the time. Nintendo tribalism. They really got their hooks into me. Let's raise this a little bit. Yeah, right there. See, we rose the tension on that. We can reel in slightly faster now. So I never really got to play too many of the Resident Evil games. The first Resident Evil game that I remember playing was Resident Evil 4, which came out on the GameCube. The first time a Resident Evil game came out on a Nintendo system, I do believe. So, yeah. Unfortunately, Resident Evil 4 was seen as this massive departure from all the earlier Resident Evil games, which focused on puzzles instead of shooting. If you look back, I know it doesn't seem like it nowadays with the remakes, but the first 3 Resident Evil games were much less about shooting things and much more about solving puzzles. A lot more atmosphere, too. Like, yeah, Resident Evil 4 has some atmosphere. It's over the top, though. It's very campy. I don't care what anyone says. Resident Evil 4 is a very campy game. I know a lot of people say that Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6 are campy and over the top. And sure, Chris punches a boulder. That is over the top. But if you look at Resident Evil 4, like, there's a giant lake monster, there's a giant castle. I don't even want to get into Salazar. Like, what's going on in that game? I think the last good Resident Evil game, and I don't mean, like, playing, because, again, I haven't played a lot of them, but plot-wise, was probably Resident Evil 3. Yeah. I think that was probably the last good one. Back when things were still normal. You know what I hate about the Resident Evil series? Like, they got big because they were a zombie game, and there were zombies in the game. And I know there have always been hunters, and there have always been tyrants, and there have always been this and that, and giant snakes, and whatever. But if I pick up a zombie game, I want a zombie, okay? I want 9 out of 10 enemies in the game to be zombies. I don't want these monstrosities like giant scorpions. I don't want giant snakes. I don't want mutated humanoids like lickers. I get it. You can throw those in there for variety. And that's fine by me. Have as much variety as you want. But I want most of the zombies to be actual, normal, fighting zombies, right? Is that so much to ask? To have actual zombies in my zombie game? I don't think so. It is just so annoying that every single time I pick up a new zombie game, or I look at one, like, most of the enemies aren't even zombies. Those are just, like, the stock basic ones for the first levels. And I get it. I really do. Like, when you have living things, like the T-virus, there are going to be mutations. You can expect mutations. And I know Left 4 Dead has mutated zombies. They have jockeys and smokers, and Dying Light has volatiles, and bloaters, or whatever else they'll call them, bursters, whatever. There are other types of zombies in these games, but they're still fundamentally a zombie. They're not giant abominations of flesh like Ouroboros, you know? I don't want to fight Ouroboros. I want to fight a zombie. In fact, I want to fight nothing but mobs of Romero zombies. Very slow beings that are just... If I could get a zombie game like that, that would be ideal. And as far as I'm concerned, Dying Light is doing that perfectly for the first couple chapters, or the first couple, I don't know, percentage of the game that I've played so far. I'm, again, about 8 to 11% in, and there haven't been any new zombies, which I like. I haven't seen anything new. We're going to the lake now. It's just normal zombies and volatiles. It's kind of ideal. So I'll probably never advance the story, you know? I'll probably never do those missions to introduce new zombies because I don't care about them. This is a pretty lake, right? You can tell it's fall. The trees are definitely brown here. Except for these ones, for some reason. These trees are perfectly green in a sea of brown. It makes you think, doesn't it? Microclimates. Have you ever heard of a microclimate? I was watching an episode of Bones the other day. As I do, you know. Now let's go to the dock here. Yeah. Like, we could go out on a boat if we wanted to. I don't particularly want to go out on a boat, though. Just fish off the dock here. Like an old man. You never actually care if you catch anything. It's always nice if you catch something. But you don't have to. Yeah. You just sit there with a can of beer in your hand and a bucket full of worms. Yeah. What was I talking about? I have no idea. I have no idea what I was talking about. I definitely got more unhinged there. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it's too much of a conspiracy, no. Zombies are great. If we could have more zombies in the world, that'd be fantastic. And I mean that in every way possible. Yeah. I always thought it was funny, though. Like, if you read into the lore of Resident Evil, The Umbrella Corporation is behind all of these modern medical breakthroughs based on the T-virus, right? Like, they have all of this regenerative medications, and, and they have these herbs that are just downright magical in how they can heal any kind of wounds. And that's all part of the lore, right? That's all in Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3. That these things have, in-universe, actual power. And it's all pretty much grown by the Umbrella Corporation, based on their studies with the T-virus, the progenitor virus, and everything else. It's kind of fascinating that with all of the money and power that they had, they couldn't stop one scientist from unleashing his leeches infected with the T-virus onto the world. I don't want to spoil too much, but yeah. Leech Man. That's what they can't stop. A bunch of infected leeches. Oh, it is such a stupid story. That's Resident Evil 0, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Which I think is actually a pretty interesting game. I played Resident Evil 0's section in either Darkside or Umbrella Chronicles, which was one of the rail shooters for the Nintendo Wii. I had both of them. They were both fantastic games. If they ever came out on Switch, I would definitely consider getting them, because they are a lot of fun. Yeah, they essentially go through the plot of everything up through 6. No, everything up through 5. No. Maybe just up to 4. I know they go up to 4. So, it's a great way to get through the story of those games, if you've never done it before, and catch up on all of the lore. Yeah, highly recommend them. They're a lot of fun, too. You don't have to solve puzzles, you just shoot things. Very easy. And, yeah, they're a great time. Like, they are co-op rail shooters, so you can play with another person. If you actually play games with other people, and you don't live in an underground ant colony like I do. Yeah. You know, I used to be a miner myself. Back when I was a kid, I used to be a miner. Yeah. And when they sent me to the mines, they were always worried that I would get black lung. But, you know, we didn't actually mine coal, so it's fine. Right? We just mined asbestos, crocodilite, and actinolite. You know, talc. Right? That's why people are so concerned about baby powder having asbestos in it. Because talc intergrows with asbestos-formed minerals, right? Yeah. It happens, so it is very possible that baby powder used to have small amounts of asbestos-formed minerals in it. Yeah, yeah. But you don't have to worry about black lung when you're mining for asbestos, right? Yeah, it's probably fine. What was I talking about? Right. So, I do want to do some more edited content on my channel. We're probably going to be doing that when I get the arm feeling better. I'll sit down and I will make videos out of some of the streams that I've done, and I'll shorten them up quite a bit so that people can have more bite-sized content. Because that's what people want these days, right? They don't want hours and hours of people just not doing anything. Or hours and hours of glitchy, dropped framed content. So, I want to condense at least the Hunting Dracula stream down into a good video. I actually did a lot of work for that stream, you know? I gave it an introduction, and I could give it an ending. I think would really bring it back, right? Give something to people who watched it by adding an ending to it. So it wouldn't feel entirely like old content that I recycled. I do feel bad about that, right? Every time I make a short, I feel like I'm cheating people out of content that they might not have been able to get otherwise, right? Like, there is always an opportunity cost when making content. I have only so much time of my days to make content. It's a hobby for me, right? Like, I'm not some big streamer, I'm not making anything off of this. I do it in my free time because I enjoy the creative endeavor. I get results for my personal goals. Things like improving my speaking, um, giving me some kind of human interaction because I'm some kind of recluse, and, you know, just generally enjoying my creativity. And other people can potentially benefit uh, through the escapism that I create in my content, right? That's the hope. That I can give some kind of escape from my cynical realities and the conspiracies that I weave about the world in some kind of complicated web that I think are true for the most part. But that's fine. Yeah, so I don't know. I know there are opportunity costs. I could be creating original content, more of it. Instead, what I do is I give people shorts every other day after I give them a video. And to me, that always feels kind of bad, right? Like, I always feel a little bit like I'm cheating people. So I have been trying to make the shorts different as of late, right? Like, I've given them different editing. I've been compiling them in different ways, um, putting new spins on things. I'm trying to make them more original, so that if people want to watch both the shorts and the long form, they'll get something different out of each of them. Well, you know, I'm very self-centered like that, Diana. I don't know. I just don't interact much with people, so I probably don't think about other people enjoying interacting with me. If anything, I think I'm kind of an irksome individual to interact with, right? Like, I'm quite cynical, conspiratorial, and I can be downright aggravating in the strangest of ways. I recognize all of these things to be true. I'm not going to change myself. I'm too old for that. Um, I am a dog with my spots, and I'm not going to steam clean them away, right? But that's just how it is. If other people enjoy interacting with me, though, I'm very happy to interact with them. In fact, that's why I do these streams, right? I could be making videos all week instead of doing streams. But I realize that there are people out there. You've met worse. Oh, thank you. What a glowing review. I'll definitely put that on the tagline for my channel. I've met worse. Great, fantastic. 3 out of 5 cigarettes, I've met worse. No, I like that. That is actually a nice review. Thank you. But yeah. I recognize that some people might actually want to engage with me in this kind of interaction. So I'm more than happy to do that. As much as I can. Which happens to be about once a week these days, yeah. For about an hour or two. I'll let you in on a secret. I only do about 1 recording session per week as well. Most days is consumed by editing, right? Like, my time is consumed by editing. And any free time that I actually have isn't that much. And what I typically do, instead of editing, is play Dying Light. Or Rogue Legacy, right? Like, I have actually gotten pretty far in Rogue Legacy. I've beaten 1 estuary, and I have the double jump, which is pretty great. I don't know how I played the game before I had the double jump. I say pretty far, but that's still very early in the game, too. I have been playing Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword as of late. I think I got to the first flame, which is... oh, I don't even remember. It's one of my favorite dungeons, because it has the coolest, basement and the coolest boss in the game, I think. It's the Ancient Cistern. That's the first flame, Farore's flame. And it's basically a Buddhist representation of the cycle of life and rebirth. And it has a hell to it. And I really love the hell. There are these undead bokoblins, I guess they are. And they're really scary. Like, when I was a kid, and I first played the game, I thought they were scary. Almost as scary as 3 Dead in Ocarina of Time, which is saying something. And the boss is amazing. It's like this automaton, and you have to strip pieces of its armor off using the whip. And it's just so much fun playing that entire thing. I don't usually like water levels, and there are a lot of parts in that dungeon with water. Of course you would love hell. Are you implying something? Very me. What has zombies in it, Diana? What else can I say? Like, I know I'm talking about zombies a lot, but that really was a big part of my life. I'm telling you, I was convinced as a kid that the zombie apocalypse was gonna happen any day. And I'm still convinced it's gonna happen any day. Like, we're not gonna be spending bottle caps, but I do always wonder what the currency in the future is gonna be like when the zombies come. I think bullets are a good one. Like, everybody's gonna need ammunition, but I don't know how good bullets are going to be, right? Like, bullets are gonna draw a lot of noise, or gonna make a lot of noise when they're shot, when they're fired. So, maybe they won't make good, very good trade materials. Maybe people want something else, like arrows. So I've always considered arrows to be a good currency, but not everybody can shoot a bow, right? So maybe they're not very good currency after all. Food's not going to be a good currency, not canned food, maybe MREs. Yeah. Food doesn't last that long. Like, shelf-stable food, maybe, like MREs, and, I don't know, tins of candy. They might last a while, they might be tradable. Like, I once read a book where they argued that contraceptives would be the #1 in-demand currency. But those things degrade over time, too. So I don't really think so. Reworked trading and bartering system, yeah. Well, yeah, obviously, we're not going to be using paper money when the zombies come. It's definitely going to be a trading and bartering system. But there's going to have to be something that has, like, the effect of currency. No one's going to carry around quarters, right? They're going to carry goods and offer services, absolutely. That's any good trade and bartering system. But there are going to be goods which are worth their weight in gold. And it's not going to be their weight in gold, it's going to be their weight in something else, right? A really cool coin? I don't think it's going to matter to anyone but a collector. Like, if it's the platinum chip and you're selling it to Mr. House in the New Vegas Strip, perhaps. Have to admit what? That you like cool coins? Like, I collect coins, I have a couple. I have bags and bags of weird coins. I used to look at coins under microscopes, just to see if they're imperfections. You might cave for the right shiny thing? Yeah, I'm with you there. I have some really nice androdite garnets, and yeah, they're very pretty. I could see someone caving for those. Why you'd die early? You never know, right? Like, you could end up a warlord, and you wouldn't have to fight directly. If you got enough of the right kind of shiny things, I think you could distract people like magpies. Like, people are like magpies. They like collecting shiny things. It's just part of being a human, I think. Ever since we're babies, we're inundated with this culture of liking shiny things, right? Like, look at these shiny plastic keys. Look at this shiny toy. Look at this shiny mobile. You know? All of these different things that are shiny and they draw attention. It's very much part of who we are as humans. So maybe you wouldn't die early. You would just have to find the right people to do your work for you. Learns to juggle fool's gold. You know what? Fool's gold would be pretty useful. It's a good source of sulfur, and a better source of iron. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's highly reactive, so don't ever get it wet, or you're going to create rust and sulfuric acid at a very low concentration. Yeah. You gotta be very careful with sulfides, right? I know galena. Galena is a cubic lead sulfide. Very pretty stuff. It's typically one of the ores where silver impurities are found. The hydrothermal ores where silver impurities are found. So it's a common ore for silver mining. But lead is by far more common, being a lead sulfide and all. So, yeah, you'd probably have a lot more luck with lead sulfide than iron sulfide. Yeah. And there are several different forms of iron sulfide, right? There's marcasite as well. I actually prefer marcasite to pyrite, yeah. Marcasite has this cool orthorhombic structure that makes it look like a coxcomb, especially when you get really nice crystals of it. I don't know if you know what a coxcomb is. The crown on top of a male chicken, that red flappy bit, the gross part of flesh that dangles off the top of its head, that's a coxcomb. And marcasite does kind of grow in that kind of pattern. Very interesting stuff, yeah. I do prefer chalcopyrite, though. Chalcopyrite is a lot more colorful. It's brassier, as opposed to, yellow. Wiggle thing. Yeah, the wiggle thing. Not the one at the bottom. Not the little red dangly bit, but the one on top of the head. The one that is tasty looking, but also gross. People eat those. People eat coxcombs. I hope I don't get demonetized by saying that. Not that I am demonetized, because I can't be demonetized. You know what? That's great that I can't be demonetized, because I'm not monetized. Like, why would it matter? At worst, they can just shove me down the algorithm, like they already do. Right? It doesn't much matter. There are a lot of fun minerals out there. Sulfides. Sulfides tend to be hydrothermal related, for the most part. At least the really nice crystals. There are plenty of ways to get things like pyrite, fool's gold. In typical anaerobic settings, for example, you can get organics. Ooh, big fish. Line broken? Line broken? Are you kidding me? This is the first time I've ever broken a line. Ridiculous. I lost my hook, I lost my... Oh, this is awful. I... Where's my live bait? Ah, this is awful. Okay. Okay, fine. Fine, okay. We can keep the hook, it's fine. It's too big for us, you know? Oh, I see, our tension was way too high. Did I hit the wrong button there? Maybe. That's fine. Anyway, I do like sulfides. Sulfides are very important minerals, especially for metal, right? Like metal ores. A lot of copper, a lot of iron, a lot of lead. There are easier sources of iron, mind you. A lot of lead, a lot of silver, a lot of gold. You'll find all those things in sulfides. Yeah. So they're very important markers, especially the hydrothermal sulfides. A lot of people do isotopic analyses on those to make sure they're getting the right things. Right things for mining. That was outside of my wheelhouse. I never really cared too much about that. I looked at the shiny stones and I collected the shiny stones. That's essentially how far I got, right? I don't need to know the chemistry of the shiny stones to know that they're pretty. So I do like my sulfides. There's another sulfide that I really like. I think it's a sulfide. It's cinnabar, and that's mercury sulfide. Very bright red, very pretty, right? It's pretty dangerous, being mercury sulfide. Highly reactive. High source of mercury. And I remember crushing that as a young geology student. So that I could put it in the X-ray diffractometer and I guess shoot it with X-rays. That was fun times. But I had to powder it, right? Because that's how the system worked. That's how the measurements were taken. You had to have a powder or a very pure sample. And with a sulfide like that, they're typically massive. Those cinnabars, yeah, they're typically massive. It's very rare. Oh, it's a big catfish. We only have the one fish. Ridiculous. Yeah, typically, cinnabar is pretty massive. Oh, wow. Speaking of massive, look at this fish. It's a monster. You can't even see its face. Very well rendered. Yeah. Typically you'll find it massive instead of nice crystals. So it has to be powdered. And that's a great way to inhale mercury. Yeah. Highly reactive mercury. I don't know if it's bioavailable mercury, which is more important than if it's reactive, right? Like, I don't know if you know what bioavailability is. It means that it can be absorbed through your organic systems. Bioavailable. Simple enough. It's in the word. Available for the biota. A lot of mercury is just stable stuff, right? Like, yes, some of it will absorb through your skin if you're handling raw mercury out of a thermometer. But for the most part, you'll probably be fine, so long as you don't have any open wounds in your hands while you're handling it, right? Like, that's always the concern when you have mercury thermometers. If you break them, there will be glass shards, and those can cause cuts in your hands, and then the mercury can get into your blood through those cuts, and some of it will react. But honestly, you're probably going to get more mercury out of a can of tuna, at least bioavailable mercury, than out of a thermometer, if you don't have any cuts on your hands. Yeah. So I don't know why we got rid of those, right? I always thought those were cool, mercury thermometers. Nowadays, we don't even use them. We have, mostly ethanol-based ones, I think. So if things ever get too bad, there is always the option of breaking open a thermometer and, downing a shot of thermometer juice. Yeah. Which I do not recommend, because again, probably glass shards, or plastic shards, depending on how cheap you are with your thermometers. I know a lot of industrial uses, or a lot of industrial ethanol products contain things like bitterants and methanol, especially. So you do have to be worried about that kind of thing. You can't just drink it. Like, sometimes they'll use rubbing alcohol, sometimes they'll use methanol, not just pure ethanol. But for some applications, you have to have pure ethanol. Or nearly pure ethanol. And, I don't know if thermometers are one of those. I'd have to look into it, right? Like, I know they had dyes. Dyes aren't going to change it too much. How the ethanol expands. But for the most part, I don't think it would affect too much. I think it'd probably be fine. You might be able to drink it if they're not adding too many things to it. And if House has taught me anything, I don't know if it's true or not, it's that the cure for methanol poisoning is just more ethanol, right? The ethanol will bind with the methanol. Oh. That's an interesting property of ethanol, isn't it? Ethanol has the ability to, what is it called? Miscibility? Immiscibility? One of those two. Where it binds, kind of. It doesn't create, like, a heterogeneous mixture. It sort of clings to water, or methanol, and it kind of complexes. I don't think that's the right word. I'm struggling to think about it, though. Where it just mixes, and you can't unmix it. Yeah. That's why distillation is such an important process for, ethanol production, right? Yeah. It's one of the only ways to get all of the water out of the system. Through, boiling. Yeah. Which is very interesting, right? Like, even when you boil ethanol and you distill it, you're going to get a couple, passes where there's going to be water still in the, ethanol that comes over. So, really, you need to distill your ethanol quite a number of times before you get something close to pure ethanol. And I know, there are industrial applications where you can salt out the water, right? But again, there are going to be trace amounts of water, even if you use the right salts. That's a neat property, though. You can salt out the water of a mixture of water and ethanol, right? Like, you don't need to distill, you can just add salt. And, yeah, basically, you'll create different layers. Look at that. It's kind of cute. Like, I can understand why people would think this is a dragon. If you look at its face, it has these whiskers like a dragon. It's very cute. And they can be very long-lived catfish, you know? Like, I know a lot of people don't think about it. But catfish are these big fish. And they're pretty much everywhere. They can be 6 feet long. That's almost 2 meters. Very cute, yeah. And they have this gross bluish flesh that just looks like rubber. Very strange creatures. Some of them are very cute, though. Like, not all catfish are giants. Some of them are very tiny, right? Like, I know there's a species of shark, or they call them a shark. But they're a type of catfish, and they're very cute. They're popular with people who keep fish in aquariums at their homes. Very common to have a... whatever this kind of shark is. But they have whiskers. They're a catfish. It's very interesting, though. Can you imagine if humans evolved to have these kind of whiskers? Like, that's a sensory system, right? Those are highly sensitive to things like taste and smell. Or, I guess, particulates in general. So, they have a good sense of smell based on these whiskers. I wish I had that sometimes, you know? Like, I wish I could just direct feelers on my face towards something and understand if it smelled or tasted good immediately. Instead, I have these taste buds on my tongue, and I have no idea if anything's going to taste good or not. And I never will, you know? Like, I just don't have a sense of taste. That's one of the curses. Yeah. It's okay, though. It's okay. Like, after so many decades of it, you get used to it. Everything tasting the same. And food becomes a chore, of course. Like, I don't mean making food, I mean consuming food. It becomes something of a chore that you just deal with, right? It feels like taking medicine when you eat food. Hyde would have been happier as a bug. I don't know about a bug. Maybe an arthropod, yeah. Like, I don't want to be an arthropod because they have gross hemolymph open circulatory systems. But at the same time, like, it wouldn't be bad to be a bug. I just think it would be very fragile to be a bug, you know? Like, I feel like it would be very fragile. I'd have to be very careful, not be stepped on or something. And I feel like I would be stepped on if I were a bug. I just wouldn't be paying attention, right? I think that's what would happen. I would not pay attention, and I would end up under the foot of some gigantic creature, which was beyond my knowledge. Living in a world of shapes and sizes, so unlike my own that I could not comprehend it, even if I thought about it, you know? I feel like that's what would happen. Yeah. Like, can you imagine what a bug would think when it saw, like, a human's world through a human's eyes? The first time a bug could see something like that, I think its mind would just explode in a gross, gooey mess. Inside of its chitinous exoskeleton, its gooey little mind would just explode. Yeah, that's what would happen to me. And I imagine something similar would happen if I were suddenly transformed, Kafka-like, into a bug. Having the experiences of a human and turning into a bug is probably as mind-blowing as a bug being turned into a human. Very strange thought, is it? Like, I just drew a parallel to Kafka. Kafka had a very similar idea. A man got turned into a bug. I always liked the metamorphosis. I never took it too literally, though. Like, apparently I'm supposed to take it literally, that this guy is turning into a bug. I always thought it meant metaphorically he turned into a bug, right? Like, he just became this gross creature that no one wanted to interact with. Still a strange thought, is it? Am I a man dreaming I'm a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming I'm a man? Like, a lot of people have wondered what it would be like to be like a bug. What a bug would think about. Whether I am a bug thinking about life. I don't know. Like, I think it's strange not to think about that. I think it's more human, in a way, to think about what a life of a bug would be like. Like, I've seen a bug's life. That's one interpretation for the masses. Yes, gross creature that no one wants to interact with. Like, I'm not saying there aren't parallels here between me and, you know, the character in Metamorphosis. I can't remember his name. It's been too long. Oh, that's sad. That's sad. My memory is getting worse and worse as the years go by, as I turn more and more into a bug. As I slowly become more of a creature of, I don't know, Kafka-esque proportions. The distinction isn't too important. Hi, plus minus, good to see you. Like, if fantasy, it speaks the alienation directly. Oh yeah, it does, doesn't it? So it doesn't really matter if it's metaphorical or if it's, literal. It would still be the same, yes. There's still a gross bug that no one wants to interact with, whether they are literally a bug or only metaphorically one. Yeah. I don't know, I think it's more powerful if it's metaphorically that he was turning into a gross creature, right? Like, yes, if you go for the fantasy or fantasy line, it would make it seem like it's more gross than it is. Or that it's, I don't know, it kind of cheapens it to me, right? Like, if you're talking about it's just a gross human, like, everybody's capable of becoming a gross human that no one wants to interact with. It's just, some of us do it better than others, right? Yeah. So I do wonder whether it would be better... Like, it works either way, don't get me wrong. I just think it works better if it's metaphorical. Yeah. Because then it's more realistic, it's more relatable. Yeah. No parallels. There are people interacting with me right now. My transformation into a bug is not complete. If I had to transform into a bug, and I'm being very broad with bug here, I will go with, I would go with a wolf spider, right? Like, I feel like I would be a good wolf spider. You know, the interesting thing about wolf spiders is, they don't really use webs, right? Like, a lot of orb weavers, they'll use webs as, traps. But no, the wolf spider will hunt down its prey. They move around, right? They have this little radius where they hunt. And, whenever they whenever they find anything going through that radius, they'll pounce on it. Exactly like a wolf on prey. And they'll bite into it. I've seen it happen dozens of times. Imagining an edited version of The Fly? Delusional scruffy guy. Jeff Goldblum. I could imagine him doing that very well. Jeff Goldblum is the perfect person to play a scruffy delusional guy. Like, I think he would play that very well. Where you're just not sure if he's actually turning into a fly or if he's just getting gross. I like that. I think that'd be fantastic. I wish Jeff Goldblum would do that. Can the wolf spider make webs? I'm not sure. I think most spiders are capable of producing silk. I don't think all spiders do. And I don't think all spiders actually use silk, even if they can. I know some spiders produce silk as sort of trap lines, so that they're not technically like webs, but they are trap lines. Things like trapdoor spiders use silk to construct trapdoors for things to walk over, like some kind of spike trap. I know some spiders just use them for motility, or mobility, rather. Motility would be something completely different. Yeah. I don't think wolf spiders do, though. No. They definitely don't make webs, but they might make silk. You know the difference, right? Webs have structure. Silk are just lines. Yeah. If anything, maybe they use them to make burrows. Like, that's one of the major things, right? Like, a lot of people get caught up in organisms making things for food, but it's not all about food. In nature, the number one killer is really the environment, right? Um, the rule of threes, right? So you get 3 minutes without oxygen, 3 hours without, no, 3 hours of exposure, and 3 days without food. No, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. Yeah, that's how it works. So the important one there is 3 minutes without shelter, essentially because of exposure. So organisms have the same basic needs. Exposure to the elements and lack of shelter is a killer in the world of nature. Yeah. So a lot of spiders actually use silk to construct little burrows, just like the trapdoor spider. Yeah. That's a common use of silk. Like, not all webs are used for trapping organisms, although it's a wonderful way of collecting food. Highly inefficient. Like, you'd have to go through a high traffic area, right? Like, somewhere around a berry bush would be a fantastic place for a spider, an orb weaver, to build a sticky web. The fascinating thing about spider silk is they can actually produce a lot of different kinds of silk using different enzymes. Some are stickier, some are tougher, they have a higher tensile strength. Some are more responsive, some are thinner. It's fantastic the amount of variety and variability spiders can make their silks with. Yeah. Personally, I'm not too much of a land invertebrate guy. I'm mostly a land mammal kind of guy, in the sense that I am mostly a land mammal myself. Not a cat person, though. Please do not call me a cat person. I would pull up the model, but the joke is kind of overplayed. Yeah. I studied mostly extinct marine arthropods, so I don't really know too much about modern spiders. Yeah, sorry about that. Like, it's very rare for terrestrial environments to even have depositional environments for fossilization to occur, especially rapid burial. You're talking about like floodplains and deltas would be like the only places where you might get something preserved. And there are remarkable insect preservations out there. Plates with some fantastic dragonflies, lanternflies, things like that. Even spiders too, yeah. But they're much rarer, and even if they're preserved, they're typically carbon films, right? They're not really hard parts. Like, the neat thing about a lot of marine arthropods is they can be buried with pretty rapid deposition. So even if they're preserved as carbon, it's very different from the surrounding sediment. Whereas in terrestrial environments, there's often a lot of carbonaceous material, things like plant matter and leaves. So it makes it a lot harder to actually tell carbon films apart, right? So that there can be insect material as well as plant material, all intermingled on the same plate. Yeah. I haven't really had the opportunity to examine too many of those. Yeah, unfortunately. It's very... Like, I've seen plants, plant fossils, and I've seen bits of insect fossils. But actually finding something like an entire spider fossilized is pretty rare. Again, just because of the preservation of it. There aren't too many terrestrial environments that have a lot of deposition of sediment. It's very cyclical when it does happen, things like floods. Deltas are the only environment that have a lot, and you're not really going to have spiders living in deltas. Well, maybe you do, you know? Maybe there are spiders that live in deltas. I know there are a couple of species of spiders that are aqueous, right? Like, some spiders can put bubbles over their heads, and they can swim underwater. Doesn't that sound ridiculous, right? Like, that sounds like it's something out of science fiction, but it's real. Spiders can attach bubbles to their head, and they can swim underwater, or they can walk on the water, like a water strider. I don't know. Nature is just fascinating, right? There's so much variation in the natural world. There are so many different kinds of creatures out there that I'm sure if you can imagine it, then it either exists, or it did exist, or it will exist. Like a scruffy Jeff Goldblum imagining himself to be a fly, when in fact he's just getting old and hairy. Yeah, that will exist someday. I think that might be one of the only viable uses of AI in film, right? Using AI to create films that can no longer exist because the actor is too old. I know it looks awful in like Terminator, the Terminator series when they de-aged Arnold Schwarzenegger. Sorry, Arnold S. Right? You have to say Arnold S because of Deadly Premonition 2. I'm not really a big fan of Arnold S. Like, I get it. He's got this mystique to him. He's an interesting guy. His films, the action ones are okay. um, his comedy is probably his stronger suit, right? Like, I don't understand why Arnold S. tried to be a serious actor. And I think a lot of the time, he just didn't. He was too over the top, right? Like, I get the sense that he just could not be serious. He seems like a playful person. And it's not against him either. I think he's a fantastic actor. I just don't think he has the range that he thought he did. He's a big muscly dude, or he was. And, he played an action star. But he couldn't play a serious one. No. I'll always remember him from Total Recall as he pulls the giant, tracking device out of his nostril. Like, there's a lot in Total Recall that is just over the top. And I know it's supposed to be a serious movie. It's based on a serious short novel, right? Or a short story. Was it Vonnegut? It might have been Vonnegut. We'll remember it for you wholesale is the title of the short story. Very different short story from the movie. Um, even the modern movie, like they remade the movie, it's not the same. It's really not the same. The short story is very strange, in fact. I'm pretty sure the short story is based on a dream that the original... It might have been Dick, not Vonnegut. Philip K. Dick? I can't remember. One of those two. It might have been based on one of their life experiences where they had a dream that they were abducted by aliens. But that's essentially what happens in the short story. A kid gets abducted by aliens, and because he's alive, the aliens don't take over the planet. He made a deal with them. Unfortunately, as part of the deal, he's not allowed to remember that deal exists. So the aliens wipe his brain, and scientists find out that his memories have been altered, so they give them back. Hi, Storm. Good to see you. Yeah. Yeah. We're just talking about Total Recall, and we'll remember it for you wholesale. The short story it was based on. I can't remember if it was Philip K. Dick or Kurt Vonnegut that wrote that. I remember Vonnegut had some very interesting literary style, right? Like, some of his famous phrases are just stuck in my head. Like the sound of a breaking milk bottle. Very evocative, very imaginative. It has great imagery potential, right? So I do think we'll remember it for you wholesale as Philip K. Dick instead. Yeah. He was less evocative. You like Vonnegut? Yeah, Vonnegut's pretty good. He wrote... Oh, what was the name of that story? The one where they had to equalize everybody, dead authors. Well, you know, there are probably more dead authors in the world than living ones. Remember it for you wholesale. Is from Dick? Thank you. Thank you, plus minus. I thought it was one of those two. Harrison Bergeron, that's the one I'm thinking about. That's the one with the line, like the sound of a breaking milk bottle. I like Harrison Bergeron. It was a very interesting take on the equalization of the human species. Vonnegut called The Shape of Stories. Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure there's a YouTube video about that going around as well. I got that recommended. Yeah. It was a parody, actually. Yeah. Yeah. A parody on the Red Scare. I could see that. I always thought, you know what? Yeah. No. That makes a lot more sense in my interpretation of it. That's a good call. um, I don't know what to talk about first. Let's talk about the shape of stories first. There was a video on YouTube. I saw it recommended while I was watching other things today. It was about the shape of stories. And I had no idea that Vonnegut, well, he made videos. Like he gave talks. Of course he gave talks. So it's fantastic that that's preserved at all. And yeah. I have to say, very interesting literary style. Very, very unique stuff. I can understand why he got so big. Now, Harrison Bergeron being a parody of the Red Scare makes a lot of sense. The sense of equality and bringing everybody down instead of raising everybody up. I could see that being about the Red Scare, yeah. There's a lot of social commentary about certain modes of socialization, you could say. Let's not get too much into the politics of it. But yeah. I only know it since I googled the meaning. I see. I always took it as more of a hopeful message about the human spirit prevailing, about individualism, which I guess is still part of the Red Scare stuff, right? Like, Americans were very, I guess, subjected to propaganda about people not being individuals anymore in certain societies. So that would be a concern. But the ending is definitely about Harrison Bergeron, like, overcoming these social and civil trials and tribulations to become the actualized individual, right? To the point where he becomes almost a messiah, able to walk through the skies. And it's just such fascinating imagery, I think. And, yeah. I don't know. I guess being about a Red Scare, it makes a lot of sense. Kinda sarcastic from the exaggeration of it. Like, yeah, the ending is definitely an exaggeration. And if it is a parody about the Red Scare, then I guess being sarcastic would go with it, right? It's different when you're a high schooler. I will not elaborate. I don't think you have to. Yeah, Harrison Bergeron was a very, about finding yourself kind of point to it, right? Like, it has the themes of individualism. And yes, if you're just looking at the surface of it, I guess you could compare that to school life, right? Like, you feel the pressures of school life weighing down on you, and you go through this institutionalization. Yeah, I could see that. um, I think it is over the top, though. Like, it's definitely supposed to be funny. The father has that device that makes it hard for him to think. I do think that is supposed to be Vonnegut's typical use of humor to drive home a point. People will remember what makes them laugh a lot more than they'll remember what makes them think. So much because I was 16 at the time. So you read it when you were 16, huh? I didn't read it until much later in my life. It was college before I read Harrison Bergeron for the first time. So I came to it late, I guess. It didn't really resonate too much with me when it came to my personal life. But I could see that being a powerful story when it comes to the creation of your burgeoning sense of self as a teenager. Yeah. Like, I would have never thought about it had you not said it, though. Have to be mentally unstable as a teenager? I don't know. Like, it's interesting, right? When it comes to art, art is always in the eye of the beholder, the meaning of art, right? Jay, just kidding. Just kidding, bro. Yeah. I think there's an element of that, though. Like, it doesn't matter what the original author or artist intends, so long as you can develop a meaning for it yourself, and it is consistent. I've always thought that a good work would allow you to do that, right? To find your own meaning in something, even if it isn't necessarily the intended meaning. Like, it doesn't mean it's not the meaning that you should have. I've always hated the attempt to police the meaning. Like, even if you are the author, and even if there is an intent there, like, it doesn't prevent other people from having their own relation to it. Almost everyone can relate to the idea of being held back. Yes, yes. you, you assume Vonnegut was an edgy teenager. You know what? I could see that. He definitely had the edgy look to him in later life. Like, he has those kind of weary eyes, right? Like, he's world-weary. And I kind of assume that if you have that much world-weariness to you, like, it might bring you back to edgy teenager years. Diana Hazel Doomed Yuri? What? What? No. Yes, maybe? Gets me for real, for real? No cap? Yeah, I don't know. I think he was just a very playful writer. So I could understand it appealing to younger audiences too. General and the Mom. Oh yeah, okay. It's been a while since I've read. Those were their names, yeah. Doomed. If you say so, you know? Like, you can write your own extension of that story. Nothing's stopping you. You can always write more. Yeah. It's called fan fiction, right? And fan fiction is the place for that kind of relationship, if you know what I mean. Like, I've seen some before in my day. And it's perfectly fine. Like, that seems to be what people want out of fan fiction these days, right? If Twilight's anything to go by, or 50 Shades of Grey, as it's called. 10 out of 10. Fahrenheit 451? Really? Really? From all the firemen, I guess? I don't know. Harrison Bertrand 2. Yeah, okay. Yeah, fair. Fair. I don't think that'd be about Harrison Bergeron at that point, though, right? Like, it would be kind of weird to call it Harrison Bergeron. It'd be like trying to capitalize off of the Harrison Bergeron brand. Wasn't that last week that we were talking about Harvest Moon not being Harvest Moon anymore? Can you send it to me? Um... it's not really my bag, you know? You can send it to me, but I can't promise I'll read it. In fact, I will promise you that I probably will not read it. But knowing that it exists is... It leaves me a little bit speechless. Comes back and becomes... I see. The grim timeline where Vonnegut got really into franchise. You know? I could see it. Like, you said parodies and, sarcastic. He could definitely do that sarcastically. It would be a postmodernist, sort of absurdist take, don't you think? I think he'd be perfectly capable of doing that kind of thing. And it probably wouldn't even mess with his whole aesthetic. I feel like he would do great, writing for, like, ad companies, right? Like, he could write for ad companies, and all over the place. That would really draw people's attentions in, right? Like, maybe he could sell a car. Yeah, a Camry or something. And he could smash a milk bottle over it. I'd buy a car like that. That'd be good franchising, that'd be good, advertising. Yeah. Oh, that reminds me of, Orwell, right? George Orwell. Yeah, good old Orwell. He always could have drawn himself. You know what? That'd be good franchising, yeah. Before Calvin did it. Oh, you know what? I remember when that got big, and my parents got into it. I was like, what are you doing? You're too old for this. I always liked his funny little self-portrait doodle. Yeah, he could definitely use that. It would definitely fit his aesthetic, too. I could see him with weary eyes and everything. I don't know, though. I remember when that happened, and it was just very weird. That it was just all over the place one day, when before it just didn't exist at all. And just overnight, it popped up on everybody's windows, on their cars. You know the other thing they had, too? Like, they had that Garfield plushie that had the suction cup hands that they would just attach to the back seat. Do you remember that? Or the ones that said baby on board. My parents had one of those baby on board ones, and they didn't even have a baby on board. I think they just liked the idea of having it. I don't know. Nope, down, down. The tension there. Well, I think this is where it's gonna be. I had a fantastic time today talking about Vonnegut and Philip K. Dick and zombies. Yeah, I hope you all enjoyed it too. I definitely don't want to remember that yaoi fanfics of Fahrenheit 451 exist. And the anti-stick figure family. Oh yeah, yeah. Yes. Those were all over the place too. I remember my brother had one of those. I wish he had the one with the dinosaur eating the family. Yeah. Good night to you all too, thank you. Yes, very, very nice. Had a great time. My voice is giving out on me. Yeah. Great time, thank you all for coming. Good to see you all. I hope you... I love you all, but for now... Hide out. I'll see you all next time. Good night all.